Hi everyone, this is Taehyung. Thank you for being here with me today. I know you're probably watching this from different places around the world, maybe from your room, maybe on your way to school or work, maybe late at night when you're supposed to be sleeping. Wherever you are right now, thank you for choosing to spend this hour with me. It means more than you think. Before we start, I want to say something honestly. I've shared a lot of laughter with all of you. I've shared jokes, excitement, music, and moments that felt like magic. But today, I am not here to smile just because people expect me to. I'm here as a son. I'm here as a human being. Someone who went through something I never thought would happen in my life. And I know some of you will feel emotional. It's okay if you cry. It's okay if you pause the video. It's okay if you hold your breath without realizing it, because I did too. I lived it. So before we continue, take a deep breath, turn off your outside noise. Let yourself be here with me completely. Because for the next hour, I'm going to take you back to the exact moment when everything started. To the day my life turned into a nightmare, the day my mom disappeared, and no one believed what really happened. Stay close. Don't skip. Listen with your heart. I never knew a single night could destroy every piece of safety I ever believed in. I never imagined that something so simple, so ordinary, could turn into the scariest moment of my entire life. And I never thought I'd be the only one who cared enough to see that something was very, very wrong. It started on a night that should have been peaceful. We wrapped up rehearsal late, everyone tired but happy. I joked around with the members, laughed, teased Jungkook for stealing my snacks, complained about my sore neck, and talked about how excited I was because my mom had traveled to Seoul to stay at a hotel near me for a few days. I remember smiling a smile that now feels like a warning I didn't understand. I texted my mom as I got into the car. Oma, I'll stop by the hotel after practice. Wait for me. I miss you. She replied within seconds, like she always did. I'll be waiting. I miss you too. If I had known that would be her last message before everything collapsed, I would have memorized every letter. When I arrived at the hotel, I expected her to open the door with that warm smile she always had for me. But the room was silent. Too quiet. I knocked again and again, calling her name. No answer. At first, I thought she had gone to the lobby or spa, but then I saw it her phone lying on the nightstand, the screen still lit from notifications, and her purse untouched, her jacket still hanging, her wallet still inside. My stomach dropped so hard I couldn't breathe. My mom never left her phone behind. Not ever. Not even for a second. Something inside me whispered, Taehyung, this is wrong. Something is wrong. I tried to stay logical. I tried to breathe. I looked for notes, for signs, for anything. Nothing. The kind of nothing that feels loud, like a scream no one else can hear. I went to the lobby and asked the staff, but they didn't seem worried. Maybe she went out for a walk, one of them said casually. They didn't know my mother. She wasn't the type to wander the streets at night alone. She especially wouldn't leave without telling me not when she knew I was coming. The employees spoke to me with that calm, dismissive tone that people use when they don't understand the urgency of your fear. The more they acted like everything was normal, the more something inside me broke. I begged them to check the CCTV. At first, they refused. Then I told them who I was, not because I wanted privilege, but because I didn't care about pride anymore. I just needed them to help. They played the cameras and I watched. I saw my mother at 8:47 p.m. leaving the elevator. She didn't look scared. She didn't look angry. She looked normal, too normal, like something or someone was making her calm. Then I saw him, a man I didn't recognize walking beside her. She wasn't talking to him, she wasn't smiling, she wasn't acting like she knew him. She was just following. My heart stopped. The staff tried to reassure me, but their words were meaningless. Maybe it's a relative, maybe it's a guide, maybe you're misunderstanding. They didn't understand that I know my mother. She would never walk beside a stranger without emotion. No panic, no excitement, no familiarity, nothing. It wasn't natural, it wasn't comfortable, it wasn't her. I knew deep in my bones my mother didn't disappear. Something happened to her. I called the police. They came. They asked questions. They asked if she'd been depressed, if she'd run away before, if she was avoiding attention, if we'd had arguments. Every question felt like a knife, like they were searching for a reason to dismiss me. And then someone said it a phrase I will never forget for as long as I live. She probably just needs space. Sometimes family members leave for a while without warning. I looked at him and I swear something inside me snapped. Do you think I wouldn't know my own mother? Do you think this is normal? Do you think I'm overreacting? Nobody believed me. Not the hotel, not the police, not anyone. But that man on the CCTV, that expressionless walk, that sudden disappearance, I knew there was more. I knew this wasn't a coincidence. I knew she didn't just leave. And I didn't care if I was the only one who saw the truth. I was going to find her. The members tried to calm me, but I couldn't be calm. I couldn't go home. I couldn't sleep. My brain wouldn't stop replaying the same thought. What if she called for me? What if she needed me? What if I'm already too late? I didn't care if nobody believed me because I believed myself. And that was enough to turn fear into determination and determination into obsession. That was the night I stopped being Taehyung the artist and became Taehyung the son who would burn the world to find his mother. People think the scariest part of losing someone is the moment you realize they're gone. But that's not true. The scariest part is the moment after when you still believe you can get them back. That night turned into morning, and morning turned into a day I don't even remember living through. Everything became a blur of questioning, searching, begging, and holding onto a hope that felt like it was killing me. I didn't care about schedules, work, or rest. I didn't care that the company was worried, that my manager kept calling, that the members begged me to take a break. None of them understood the desperation that was eating me alive. All I cared about was finding my mother. I returned to the hotel and retraced every step she took on the CCTV. I walked the hallway she walked. I stood in the elevator where she stood. I stared at the floor she walked on with that man. Every detail mattered, every second mattered. I started asking guests, workers, drivers, security guards, even delivery people. Have you seen this woman? Please, please think carefully. Some recognized her. Some didn't. Some pretended to remember just because they knew who I was. But none of them gave me anything real. And then the hotel manager walked toward me with that practiced expression, the one that tries to look sympathetic but hides irritation. Mr. Kim, we understand your concern, but you must stay calm. People come and go from this hotel every day. It's very possible she left willingly. Willingly. The word made something inside my chest twist in a way that hurt more than breathing. I know my mother, I said, my voice shaking. She wouldn't leave without telling me. She wouldn't walk with a stranger. She wouldn't disappear. He responded with that polished, robotic voice. There is no evidence of foul play. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shatter something. I wanted them to stop talking to me like I was irrational when I was the only one reacting rationally. I walked out before I did something I'd regret. The moment I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. At first, I ignored it. I didn't want to talk to anyone, but it buzzed again and again and again. When I finally looked, I saw the group chat. Every message was filled with worry. Jungkook wanted to come to me. Jimin begged me to eat something. Namjoon reminded me that panic doesn't help the brain think. Hoseok sent a voice note telling me I wasn't alone. I stared at their messages, and instead of being comforted, I broke. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers. I threw my phone down on the car seat and pressed my palms against my eyes until it hurt, groaning, shaking, angry at the world and at myself. If I had come earlier, would she still be here? That question rooted itself inside me like poison. Finally, Yoongi called me directly. I answered only because I didn't have the energy to ignore another message. His voice was quiet, steady, not pitying, which is exactly why I didn't hang up. Taehyung, he said, listen to me. When something terrible happens, the first thing that gets destroyed is your mind. If you lose control, you lose the fight. You need to be strong right now, not emotional. I didn't say anything. Then he added something that hit harder than anything so far. You're the only person who can find her, so you have to stay alive. Do you understand me? Something about those words snapped me back into my body. Stay alive. Stay sharp. Stay angry but controlled. I wiped my face with my sleeves and took a deep breath. I wasn't giving up. I wasn't going to sit and wait. I wasn't going to hope blindly. Hope without action was just pain. So I became the action. I went back to the CCTV room and demanded to see every camera, every hallway, every exit, every parking lot, every floor, every blind corner. Hours passed. My eyes burned. My body shook, but I kept watching. And finally, there was something. At 8:49 p.m., another camera caught the same unknown man with my mother walking toward a service exit, a door only employees used. My mother didn't stop. She didn't look confused. She didn't look like she needed help, but she also didn't look like she wanted to go. It was like she wasn't herself. The man walked ahead. She followed, not beside him, behind him, like something pulled her forward without emotion. I leaned closer to the screen. My heartbeat was so loud I could hear it in my ears. And then I saw it, the detail everyone else ignored. Her left hand shook, barely, almost invisible, but it shook. I knew my mother's body language better than anyone alive. That shake wasn't fear, it was resistance. The kind a person shows when they want to run but can't. I froze. She didn't leave willingly. Someone made her leave. I turned to the hotel staff and said the words that changed everything from a missing person into a crime. She wasn't walking with him, she was being led. But once again, nobody believed me. The police said there was no visible sign of struggle. The hotel said the footage didn't indicate danger. Everyone wanted to take the easiest explanation that she just walked away. They wanted to believe the world is safe, but I knew it wasn't. So that night, I made a decision that would change everything. If nobody believed me, I would find her without them. Even if I had to look everywhere, even if I had to burn every bridge, even if I had to destroy myself in the process. Because a son who loves his mother doesn't stop searching, and I wasn't going to stop not until I brought her home. Alive. People expect pain to fade over time. They expect you to wake up one day and magically function again, eat again, laugh again, breathe again, pretend like nothing happened. But pain doesn't fade when the person you love is still missing. Pain becomes the clock you live by. Every minute feels like a warning, every second a countdown towards something worse. The world moved on. Schedules resumed. Interviews continued. Fans waited. Promotions were still happening. Life didn't care that my mother was gone. But I cared too much. Every morning I woke up with the same thought burning inside me. Where is she, and is she safe today? The company tried to hide the crisis. They didn't want rumors spreading. They didn't want panic. They didn't want the media to twist everything. And I understood that, but I didn't care. I wasn't an idol right now. I wasn't a celebrity. I wasn't Taehyung from BTS. I was a son whose life had stopped. Whenever I wasn't physically searching, my mind was searching. My nightmares turned into clues. My memories turned into questions. Everything reminded me of every street corner, every smell, every older woman passing by. I stopped sleeping, I stopped eating, I stopped speaking to people unless it was related to finding her. And then came the moment that hurt more than the disappearance itself. When people started assuming it was my fault, some police officers hinted that maybe my mother left because of the pressure of having a famous son. Some online strangers suggested she disappeared because of me. Some even accused her of wanting attention or money. I read every message, even though I shouldn't have, and every accusation carved into me like glass. It's funny, you can give the world everything, and the world will still blame you for something you didn't do. But the worst part wasn't the rumors. It was when people started getting comfortable with the situation. They stopped asking about her. They stopped checking in. They stopped treating it like an emergency. They acted like she was gone for good. But I refused to bury her in conversations. I refused to talk about her in the past tense. I refused to accept that she didn't want to come back. I remember one night specifically. I was sitting alone in my apartment, lights off, just staring at the floor. I heard the members laughing in the group chat, sending each other memes and voice notes. And I hated myself for feeling jealous. I wanted to laugh again. I wanted to feel normal again. I wanted to have a day where breathing wasn't painful, but I couldn't not without her. I turned my phone face down and whispered to the empty room, Oma, where are you? I'm here. I'm not giving up on you. For the first time in weeks, I cried. Not out of panic, but out of exhaustion, the kind that comes when hope starts hurting more than fear. Then something unexpected happened. 3 days later, I got a call. Not from the police, not from the hotel, not from the company. From a woman who worked at a cafe right across from the hotel. She said she saw my mother before she disappeared and that she remembered her because she looked uncomfortable. My heart started racing, but I forced myself not to fall into blind emotion. What exactly did you see? I asked. She said my mother came in earlier that day and ordered tea, but she looked distracted like she was waiting for someone. Then a man sat at her table, the same man from the CCTV, the same man who led her out of the hotel. The cafe worker remembered them because my mother's hands were shaking the same subtle tremor I saw on CCTV. But she said something else, something that pierced through my ribs like lightning. My mom tried to hide a small napkin under her cup. The workers found it after they cleaned the table. And when the cafe worker unfolded it out of curiosity, there was a handwritten message inside. She read it to me over the phone. I didn't want to come here. Something is wrong. My vision went blurry. I dropped to my knees right there on the kitchen floor. That napkin was proof that she didn't leave willingly, proof that someone took her, proof that everything I felt wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. And suddenly, everyone who dismissed me became the enemy not because they were bad people, but because their disbelief cost me time. Time I could have used to save her. I asked the cafe worker for the napkin. She told me she kept it because it worried her, but she didn't know who to give it to. She said she would hand it to me in person whenever I was ready. And for the first time in weeks, something inside me woke up again. Hope. Not the soft, emotional kind that hurts, but the sharp, dangerous kind that drives you forward. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and left the apartment without hesitating. I finally had proof. I finally had direction. I finally had fire again. I wasn't just searching anymore. I was hunting because someone took my mother and now I was coming for them. I drove to the cafe without thinking about traffic, cameras, fans, or consequences. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care if it became news. The only thing I cared about was that napkin, the last message my mother wrote before she disappeared. When I arrived, the cafe was quiet. The woman who called me recognized me immediately, but there was no excitement in her eyes, only concern. She didn't treat me like a celebrity. She treated me like a son. She guided me to a corner table away from the windows and handed me a small plastic sleeve. Inside was the napkin folded, slightly wrinkled, stained by tea. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to see my mother's handwriting in that context, in that fear. But I forced myself to unfold it. The shaking letters hit me like a punch. I didn't want to come here. Something is wrong. I read it over and over again until the words blurred. She wasn't confused. She wasn't running away. She wasn't avoiding me. She was scared and she didn't want to be there. My mother was in danger and she knew it. There was more written in the corner of the napkin, tiny and rushed, like she didn't want anyone to notice. B33. 2 characters and a number. B33. It could have meant anything, a room number, a code, a floor, a license plate, a meeting spot, anything. But the cafe worker leaned forward and pointed to the window facing the abandoned buildings across the street. That building across from the hotel, she said. The one nobody uses anymore. You know how it has labels on every entrance? One of them says B33. My heart dropped into my stomach. My mom wouldn't write something meaningless. She wouldn't risk being seen. If she wrote B33, then she wanted me to find it. She wanted me to come for her. It wasn't random. It was a message. A cry for help. I thanked the cafe worker more times than I can remember. She told me to be careful. She told me to tell the police first. She told me not to go alone. But I wasn't listening. I walked out, crossed the street, and approached the abandoned building. The wind was sharp, cutting through my jacket like needles. The closer I got, the darker the place felt, as if it was holding something it didn't want anyone to find. There it was, on the side entrance door, a plate covered in rust and dirt, B33. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from fury. I grabbed the handle locked. I pushed harder, still locked. I looked for another entrance, everything sealed. Just when I started to curse under my breath, a hand grabbed my shoulder from behind. I spun around, ready to fight. It was Jungkook. He was out of breath, sweating, eyes wild with worry and panic. "Hyung," he said, "I knew you'd come here." I stared at him, confused, angry, exhausted. "Did the others tell you to follow me?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "I followed you because I know you. Because if I were you, I'd be here too." His voice cracked a little, and that broke the wall I was trying so hard to keep up. I didn't want the members involved. I didn't want them in danger. I didn't want anyone dragged into my nightmare. "Jungkook," I said, "go home." "No," he answered immediately, eyes blazing with loyalty. "You're not doing this alone. I don't care what the company says. I don't care if I get in trouble. I don't care if it's dangerous. I'm staying." I wanted to shout at him. I wanted to tell him to leave. But the truth was, a part of me needed him there. Not as a member, not as a friend. As family, we circled the building until we found a loose window frame, rusted and barely hanging on. Jungkook climbed in first, then pulled me up from the inside. The air smelled old like dust, iron, and secrets. The halls were dark and silent. Every step echoed like a warning. My chest tightened as we searched room after room. Empty. More empty. Still empty. It felt like we were chasing a ghost. Then, halfway down the hallway, Jungkook froze. "Hyung, look." On the wall of the next room, someone had scratched into the concrete with something sharp. A key, a nail, a coin, anything they could use. "Help me," written over and over and over. The room spun. My breath left my lungs. My stomach turned. It wasn't old writing. It was recent. Jungkook put his hand on my back to steady me, but I could barely stand. My mother was here. She was here, alive, in this building. She scratched for help until her fingers bled, and someone took her again. I pressed my forehead against the cold wall and whispered an apology to her, even though she couldn't hear me. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. I'm so sorry. Jungkook pulled me back before I collapsed. Hyung, this isn't the end, he said. This means she fought. This means she's alive. This means we can find her. For the first time in weeks, I felt something shift deep inside me. Not hope, something stronger than hope. A promise. I looked at the scratched words between my hands and swore to myself, whoever did this will regret touching her, and I will get her back. Even if the whole world tries to stop me, we didn't leave the abandoned building right away. I wasn't ready. My body was shaking, my throat burning, my head full of images of my mother in that room alone, terrified, scratching those words into the wall over and over again. I could almost hear her voice calling my name. It made me sick to think she was so close to me and I didn't even know. The room felt like it remembered her. The air was heavy, the floor had scuff marks, signs of a struggle, signs of movement. There were zip ties in the corner, snapped and twisted, as if someone had tried to break free with every ounce of strength they had. There were pieces of torn fabric that looked like they came from a blouse she wore that night. She fought so hard, and the fact that she fought and still lost made my chest feel like it was being crushed under a weight I couldn't survive. My fist hit the wall before I even realized I acted. Jungkook grabbed me before I injured myself, holding me tight while I shook uncontrollably. I wasn't crying, I wasn't panicking. I was exploding on the inside, like something had ruptured and couldn't be contained. Taehyung, he whispered through clenched teeth, we will find her. We will, but you can't fall apart now. I nodded, even though every cell in my body wanted to scream. I forced myself to breathe one inhale, one exhale until I could think clearly again. We started searching the room, knowing there had to be more clues. Someone who locked her here didn't expect anyone to look. People who hide others don't worry about cleaning. We looked through every crack and corner. We checked the floor, the ceiling, the windows, and then Jungkook noticed something taped beneath a metal pipe on the wall. A small piece of paper, dirty, creased, and nearly invisible. He pulled it out and handed it to me. It was my mother's handwriting, again rushed, terrified but still hers. Warehouse, red door. I felt the same jolt I felt when I first read the napkin in the cafe. My brain instantly tried to match the clue with the surroundings. Warehouse could mean almost anything, Seoul was full of them. But next to the writing, in tiny letters barely visible, was something else. Jinro Pier. This wasn't a random location. That pier was 40 minutes away, storage buildings, shipping crates, dozens of warehouses, and no public access after dark. The perfect place to hide someone. I folded the note like it was the most precious thing in the world and put it safely into my pocket. My heart was pounding with rage and adrenaline, but also with something more dangerous than either clarity. We finally had a target. When we left the building, the sky was turning dark. Street lights buzzed to life. The world kept moving like nothing had changed, like someone's mother wasn't kidnapped, like someone's life wasn't being destroyed, like I didn't just find proof that my mom begged for help while people ignored me. I called the police again. I told them about the abandoned building, the scratched walls, the notes, the new location clue, and once again, They told me they would look into it. I knew what that meant: paperwork, meetings, delays, excuses. They didn't understand that every minute mattered. So I made a choice, one I wasn't supposed to make, one that could ruin my life, my career, everything. I wasn't going to wait for the police. I was going to the pier myself. Jungkook didn't even ask if I wanted him to come. He was already unlocking the car. He tossed me the keys because he knew I needed control. We got in and drove, not saying a word. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was focused, sharp, deadly. Halfway there, Jungkook finally spoke. Young, when we find her, what are you going to do? It wasn't a question about logistics. It was about vengeance. I didn't look at him when I answered. Whatever I have to. He didn't argue. He didn't try to soften me. He didn't tell me to calm down. He just nodded, like he understood exactly what I meant because he did. The closer we got to Jinro Pier, the colder the world felt. The road was empty. The buildings looked dead. The silence was too heavy, the kind that sits in your bones. When we reached the outer gate, it was locked, but there was a gap in the fence large enough for someone to slip through. Someone like a man leading a frightened woman. Jungkook squeezed through first, then helped me through. We moved slowly, sticking to shadows, our footsteps barely making a sound. The air was thick with the smell of metal, salt water, and danger. Then we saw it, a warehouse with a red door, exactly like the note said. Every muscle in my body tensed. My heartbeat hammered through my skull. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. She could be right there behind that door. I took one step forward, then another, until I was standing directly in front of it. For a moment, I rested my hand against the metal the way a child knocks before entering a room. Oma, I whispered so quietly it hurt. If you're in there, I'm here. Inside the warehouse, I heard something. Not clearly, not loudly, but something, a thud or a cry or a struggle. I couldn't tell, but I didn't need to. I reached for the door handle, and that was the exact second when a blinding spotlight snapped on from behind us, flooding the entire pier with harsh white light. A voice echoed through the speakers, cold and unfamiliar. Step away from the door. Jungkook grabbed my wrist, and I realized we weren't the hunters anymore. We were the ones being watched. And that's where I'll stop for today. If you've stayed with me until this moment, thank you. I know this wasn't an easy story to listen to. It wasn't easy for me to tell either. Even just talking about it brings back sounds. I try to forget places I don't want to remember and faces that still appear in my dreams. But I chose to share this journey with you not as an idol, not as someone on a stage, but as a person who went through something terrifying and survived. When my mom disappeared, the world didn't pause for me. Cameras still flashed. People still expected me to smile. Interviews still continued as if everything were fine. And maybe that's one of the hardest parts of being Taehyung from BTS. Sometimes the world sees the image and forgets the human behind it. There were days when I woke up hoping it was all just a bad dream. There were nights I begged the universe to give her back. I searched until my legs hurt, cried until my voice broke, blamed myself until I couldn't breathe anymore. The terrifying truth is love doesn't always protect you from pain. Sometimes loving someone deeply means you'll hurt deeply when the world tries to take them away. But here's something important. Not once, not for a single second did I give up on her. Even when people didn't believe me. Even when everyone told me I was overreacting. Even when they tried to convince me she just left on her own. I knew my mom. I knew her heart. I knew something was wrong and I refused to accept anything less than the truth. And that truth, the real truth, is darker and more complicated than anyone expected. What happened to my mom wasn't an accident, it wasn't coincidence. Thank you for listening with your heart. Thank you for not turning away from my pain. Thank you for letting me be real. The next part of this story will be darker. It will reveal things people try to hide. And once you hear it, you will never look at certain people the same way again. So, stay with me. Thank you for watching, for caring, for listening. I hope you sleep well tonight, even if I didn't back then. This is Taehyung, signing off for now. I'll see you in the next part.